What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Inside Inter Miami. We're back for another episode. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, joined as always by Michelle Kaufman, our Inter Miami beat writer. Back to match day week. It's the second round of the playoffs. It feels like the first round took forever because of all the games and then, of course, the FIFA break. But we are finally at the conference semifinals. And now it's do or die, as we know. It's one and done, single elimination, win or go home for this team. And Lionel Messi, Rodrigo De Paul, and others are back or getting back from national team duty from that FIFA break. Of course, Rodrigo and Lionel Messi are back from playing for Argentina. They're training for this pivotal matchup at Cincinnati. The five other players making their way back as well. And this is it, knockout round. We're going to dive into the matchup between Miami and Cincinnati. We're going to talk a little bit about how it went during the season, how it may go now. We dive into a game preview. We have some reaction from Apple TV analyst Taylor Twellman, who had some pretty good thoughts about this big game coming up this weekend. And then some news around the league. MLS announced this week it's shifting its calendar to align with the rest of the leagues around the world starting in 2027. So we'll talk a little bit about that big change for the league. And President Trump announced that World Cup travelers can get expedited priority U.S. visas to attend the World Cup next year. So Michelle has all the lowdown on that, but let's get started with the show. Michelle, of course, we got to start with guess who? Number 10, back from Angola. How did it go out there?
Who
I
are we
wonder
going to
who, right?
start with? I wonder who are we starting with on this show?
Yeah. So how did it
Yes.
go in Angola?
Well, it went well in Angola. First of all, the fans, just like everywhere he goes, it's like the Beatles, it's like Taylor Swift. I've really, after covering him for almost 2.5 years now, it really is. It's not really it is a sporting event, but it really is just like a concert of a
Rock
big
stars.
superstar. And I feel like the result of the matches don't even matter as much to the fans who go as the opportunity to see him in person. It really is like seeing, a big rock band or a big singer that everybody loves and they want a chance to see them play or, to see them perform. And it's the same everywhere Messi goes. Wherever he goes, the team bus pulls into the town or city, wherever it is on the globe, and there will be people lining the streets. There will be people wearing the pink number 10, wearing the Argentina number 10, yelling and screaming, everybody with their cell phones up, taking pictures. I mean, it really is the same as when the Beatles, there were no cell phones with people lining the streets with cell phones. But,
Can you imagine? It would have
Taylor
been
Swift
everywhere.
or anybody else. So, it was a big scene as usual because it always is wherever he goes. In Angola, these people have never had a chance to see him in person. He's all of a sudden in their country. And so there was a big scene. And then on the field, you know, a ho hum day at the office, one goal, one assist for Argentina. They won 2-0. He scored a goal in the 82nd minute. He had the assist on Lautaro Martinez's goal in the 43rd minute. So, a good day at the office for Messi. Now, those fans, the reason that they got to see Lionel Messi in Argentina is that the Angolan government and soccer federation and whatever, they paid close to $13 million for an appearance fee. They paid $13 million for this match to happen. So that was a little bit controversial. I read some stories from African media of people complaining that, that there were better uses of that money. But this was the 50th anniversary of Angola's independence from Portugal. And, they had a big week-long celebration. It was like an Independence Week celebration. And the culmination of the celebration was the Angolan national team getting to play the defending World Cup champion with Lionel Messi. And one of the conditions, by the way, of that game is that Messi would be featured in the game. So the Argentina team was required, basically, from what I read in all the stories, he was required to play in the game in order for this deal to take place. So apparently it was a 13.
Was he required to
Mhm.
score, and was he required to score and have an assist too? Because if he did, he fulfilled
Oh,
his
I don't.
commitment.
he always fulfills his commitment. I think when he shows up, he fulfills his commitment. But in this case, yeah, there were, this was a big deal for Angola. They wanted a huge celebration for their independence. And what's bigger than having Lionel Messi come to your country and play against your national team for the first time? 50,000 fans showed up. It was a big deal. And the Argentina national team got some large sum of the 13 million. I'm not sure exactly how much, but that's how much it cost to have this game take place, to organize the game, to pay the appearance fees and everything else. The price tag was about 12.8 US million dollars. So
that appearance fee is someone's contract
yeah,
for a whole season. That's unbelievable. That's
a lot of money, but that's what,
yeah.
and they were supposed to also play in India. By the way, the Argentina national team was also supposed to play in India during this window. It was supposed to be Angola and India. The India deal fell through. I don't know if it was just that it was too much money or something else fell through. But yeah, Argentina is an expensive guest. Let's put it that way. If you're inviting Argentina to your party, it's not going to be cheap. So anyway, they had Messi. They got to see him score a goal. They got to see him have an assist. They got to see him in the bus going down the street. And that's what the people of Angola wanted. And they got what they wanted. He and Rodrigo de Paul, because there was no game in India, after that, everybody just went back to their clubs. So that was good, actually, for Messi and Rodrigo de Paul, that they didn't also have to go to India. That would have been, in the middle of the playoffs to go to Angola and India would have been very disruptive. So they got back
Yeah.
over the weekend, and they were at training. As far as I saw, the team showed, we don't get to see the training until Wednesday, but they got to, the team sent out some photos of training on Monday, and Messi and Rodrigo de Paul were both there in uniform training with their teammates. So they are back getting ready for this really big game, which is, we're going to say now every single week, this is the biggest game in club history because this is the first time that they're in the knockout round.
That's right, and a good sigh of relief too that they went, they did what they did, seemed to be fine because obviously that's everything that's happening with the clubs now is like they hold their breath. It's like let's not lose our stars to some injury on the road and something like that, especially before a massive playoff game like this. So mission accomplished on that front, and now it's time to like Bill Belichick said, we're on to Cincinnati. And here comes a team that has held Miami scoreless both times they've played. Of course, like we talked about last week, one of them, Messi did not play. One of them he did. And unfortunately, I think it was the ugly one. So how does this team flip it, Michelle? How do they get them when it counts, since now this is all that matters?
Yeah, I mean, I think the motivation factor has to be sky high with this team right now. I mean, this team, they need to do well in the play. It was not enough just to advance to this round. That is not satisfactory for this team. For another team, that may be fine. For this team that has the roster that they have, we've talked about it, the most expensive roster in the league, the best player in the world, all of these stars, all of the expectations. They haven't won any of the trophies so far this year. They came close. They got semifinal, whatever, but they have not lifted a trophy this year. There's been no trophy this year. And they cannot get through this entire season without a trophy. That will not be a satisfactory season. That would be a big disappointment for them not to lift a single trophy with this team, and with Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba leaving. This is it. This is their final chance. This is the last dance, the last hurrah, however you want to call it, the swan song, any words you want to use. This is the last chance for this group of Barcelona buddies to get an MLS trophy. And, it would be their third try. They came here 2 years in 2023. It didn't happen that first year. Last year, they lost in the first round. Now everybody's been around a long time. They've become accustomed to the league. There are no excuses. Capital N, capital E. No excuses. Everybody's healthy. They've been in the league 2.5 years. They know what to expect from Cincinnati. There should be no surprises. And Cincinnati is a really good team. They have Evander, who, you know, is a guy who came over there from Portland this year and is an MVP, uh, MVP finalist every, the last few years. He
Yeah,
has
one of those.
18 goals and 15 assists. Very good player. And then they have Kevin Denke. They have Brenner, Miles Robinson, U.S. national team defender. Their goalkeeper is also good. So it's a very good team that has done well against Miami. They are not going to be afraid. Pat Noonan is their coach. That team is not going to be intimidated. And I just want to throw in that, that atmosphere there. And I did speak to Taylor Twellman about this game, about the atmosphere, about what to expect. And he also talked about, people who say, well, this team has dealt with pressure before. This is no big deal. These are guys who have played on the biggest stages in the, Champions League, World Cups. This is going to be nothing going to Cincinnati. It still is pressure because these guys know that if they lose in this second round, basically to Cincinnati, that is a failure on the part of this team. That is not a success. They need to win this game. And Taylor mentioned that when he has spoken to David Beckham has told him that the project at the LA Galaxy, when he got there, that project, even though they got fans in the stands, they sold a lot of Beckham shirts, all of these things the way Inter Miami's doing, the project was not really successful and complete until they had the star above their crest. Until they had a championship star on their shirt, that project was not complete. And Taylor said that this group of players from Barcelona who came here to win an MLS trophy and to be the best team in the league, that project is not complete until there's a star on the shirt. And right now, there's no star.
Yeah, there's no star yet. And like you said, this is a star-studded, in their own respect, a pretty star-studded Cincinnati team in a way. We look back, those two games against Cincinnati during the regular season, they seem like they were 4 months ago, and just so
Yeah, it was in
long ago. But
July.
they were within a span of 10 days. And interesting in that game too. I know we're talking a lot about the big names, but at goalkeeper, that was the game that Ustari, I believe, got hurt. They gave up a goal early, and then Evander scored twice later in the game. Rocco Rios Novo was the one in the goal for most of that game, and now we know that Rocco has been the man, has been the one in goal these last few games, and has played a lot better. So an interesting story subplot in the game. How is Rocco going to perform now, 4 months later, when he's a lot more prepared, a lot more experienced than he was the first time against Cincinnati? But
Yeah, I think
let's
this
hear.
is a different.
Yeah,
I think before we, I think this is a different. I think July to November this season, it does seem like it was so long ago. You know why? Because it
yeah.
was. It almost feels like it was last season. It feels like this season has been 2 or 3 seasons. It was a long time ago. July, those games happened right after the Club World Cup. Wow, does the Club World Cup seem like ancient
An
history? I
eternity.
can barely remember it. It seems like an eternity ago. That was in this season. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So here we are now in November. Those games were in July. I think this Inter Miami team right now, and especially if they play the way they played against Nashville. Against Nashville, they played very well defensively. I don't think there's any question this team is going to score goals. Miami can score goals. I don't see a 0-0 game. I don't think that this team right now, the way they're playing in the groove that they've been in recently, this team has been scoring a multitude of goals, not just against Nashville, all the games. They've been scoring 3 goals per game, 2.5, 3 goals per game, for quite some time now. So they can score goals. The question is, can they keep Cincinnati from scoring? And I do think that this team now is better than it was in July. Rocco Rios Novo definitely is playing better now than he did that time in July. And also, I just think the motivation factor for this team now going to Cincinnati, a place that is really hard to play. We're going to hear from Taylor about the atmosphere there. I've been there and I will be there for this weekend's game. The stadium is a box. It is tall, kind of like Nashville. And those fans, I'm telling you, that is going to be blue and orange. It is going to be blue and orange. They are very fired up for their team. They boo Messi. In fact, they boo Messi.
Yeah,
In
they do.
other places, you hear cheers for Messi. You will not hear cheers in Cincinnati. They will boo him. When he starts touching the ball, they will boo him, which is something you don't hear in other places. So this is an intimidating place to play, even for players who have a lot of experience playing in the biggest stages of the world. This is going to be a difficult game and a lot of pressure on Inter Miami to win this time, because last time was not pretty up there. They want to turn things around and play better this time, and they want to advance in the playoffs and they're basically 3 wins away from lifting the only trophy they can lift this year. And it would be the only trophy this year for Busquets and Alba before they ride off into the sunset. So it's a huge game.
On and off the field, a lot of pressure on this team. But let's hear what Taylor Twellman had to say about the atmosphere and the crazy hostile environment at TQL Stadium.
It's as good as it gets when it comes to Major League Soccer. And I've said this from the moment I set foot in TQL Stadium. If I blindfolded you and put you in the middle of that stadium, took the blindfold out, and for anyone that didn't see it, go watch the pregame display with Phil Collins in the air tonight before kickoff, you would have no idea that you were in the Midwest of the United States of America. It feels like a Bundesliga, lower mid-table, lower level Premier League stadium, because Man City and all of those are 60,000 people. But it is the best atmosphere. It is the best stadium. If not 1A, it's 1B for me. Michelle, I've been there for US-Mexico. My Apple Watch tells me loud environment probably 15 times during the game. I'm not exaggerating. The thing is brilliant. And I just think next Sunday, in the 30th year of Major League Soccer, with Messi being on the away team, I just think that you're going to be hard pressed to find a better spectacle of how far Major League Soccer has come, especially when I was playing in the league till now. I think the atmosphere is going to be great. If the weather's an issue, then we're wasting our time, because the weather's going to be fine. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be great to play the game, but the atmosphere is going to be, like I said, if not 1A in MLS, it's 1B.
An incredible, like he's saying, to have not just that stadium, but to have Messi there. And he talked about it being the 30th anniversary of MLS and how crazy that stadium is.
Yeah, and he called it 1A. I mean, I know he said it's going to be hostile environment. He said that if you were to blindfold somebody and have them listen to the atmosphere of that game, they would never imagine that they are in the middle of the Midwest of the United States, that they would think that they're in the Bundesliga or in a second division England team, or, a game in England. It's a really, really good atmosphere. It is. It's like a European style atmosphere that you have there from the pregame all the way to the end. And, he was saying basically, and I agree on this, LAFC and Cincinnati, and I would throw Nashville is good in there too. Those MLS soccer only stadiums have an atmosphere, and this is nothing against the Inter Miami fans, or I think it'll be much better at Miami Freedom Park, than it is at Chase Stadium. And, the La Familia is wonderful in the end zone, and that's all great with the Inter Miami games. But when you've attended an MLS game in Seattle or in Cincinnati or in Nashville or in LAFC, some of those stadiums, they have really, really, really hostile environments. And we saw that they didn't do well in Seattle either. These are really good places for MLS teams to play, and it should be a lot of fun. I mean, it should be a really, really good game. And Miami's in for a big test. If they play the way they played against Nashville, they are the better team, and they should win. They have a better roster. If they play to their potential, which they did against Nashville in that deciding game, they can win this game. But this is a dangerous game, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And there is pressure. There is pressure on them, no matter what anyone thinks. Yes, they've been through things, but there's pressure on them to win.
Yeah, and I know you asked Taylor a little bit too about would they be intimidated by the big four, by their rock stars. I don't think so. I think the fact that they have not only beaten them, but they've held them scoreless. Even I know one wasn't at full strength, but that 3-0 victory, the mystique, we've talked about it to like crazy, Michelle, in past episodes, the mystique and all that intimidation, the second you get off the bus thing, that's out the window. I think it's just show up, and they know if they do this, and that, and play well on defense as much as possible, a win is not inconceivable.
Right.
It's
Right. Yeah. And by the way, Pat Noonan, the teams with very good tactical coaches have figured out, we saw what Bradley did in Chicago.
Right.
They were able to shut them down. We saw what other teams, have done. There have been teams that have been able to shut them down. Vancouver, Minnesota, Seattle. This team has been beaten. They're not invincible. I mean, they're not, they can be beaten. They can be beaten, and they have been beaten. And Cincinnati is among the teams that have done it. And so, like you said, that sort of awe factor, like, oh my gosh, I'm playing against Lionel Messi and Busquets and Alba and Suarez. That's not the case anymore. These guys know that there are certain things that you can do to frustrate them, to limit the service to Messi. If they can limit the passes from Busquets to Messi, if they can limit the passes from Suarez to Messi, which, by the way, we haven't talked about. Silvetti played so well in the last game. The team had a certain dynamic that it does not have when Luis Suarez plays. He's going to be back for this game. I would assume that he's going to start because he is Luis Suarez. Should he start? That's up for debate. I know that there are people who have very strong feelings about this, who feel he should not start, that they should start Silvetti and go with the younger legs with a different dynamic where they can run faster and get up field quicker for the long pass. There will be someone already there waiting. That's something that Silvetti provided that Luis Suarez doesn't provide. What Luis Suarez provides is experience, though. A lot of experience in really big games, high pressure games, which this is one. So Masherano has a big decision to make. My guess is that Suarez is going to start. And, so it's going to be interesting. This team is good enough to win. But Cincinnati is not going to be intimidated. Cincinnati will not be intimidated. They know that Miami is beatable, that they have beaten them before. Other teams have beaten them too. And Pat Noonan is a really good coach. And by the way, that team, I believe, leads the league in one goal victories, meaning that they win close games. They win a lot of games by 1 goal, 3-2, 2-1, whatever. So they are a team that's very difficult to beat.
And they did it again against Columbus in the third game, in the decisive game of that series. They fell behind early. Where they're watching it, we watched some of that before the Miami's own game 3, and they fell behind just before halftime. Came back, scored 2 goals, and again held off Columbus. Won a 1-goal victory to clinch and be here where they are right now. So,
that game showed you exactly. It looked like the Crew was going to pull that off,
right? Especially coming off what the Crew did in game 2.
Yes,
the Crew just blew them out in game 2.
The Crew blew them out 4-0, I think, in game 2. And then in game 3, the Crew came out and goes ahead in the first half. Right. And we're thinking that it's going to be a home game for Inter Miami against the Columbus Crew. And no, Cincinnati is a team that can come back. They win a lot of goals. I think a lot of games, I think 18 or something of their wins have been by a single goal. So they are a team that comes back. They don't fold. Even when they're behind, they come back and win. So Miami needs to be careful. Even if Miami were to take a lead at halftime, like the Columbus Crew did, they cannot then come out in the second half and, twiddle their thumbs for the first 5 minutes, because then Evander or Brenner, one of these guys, is going to score in the first 5 minutes of the second half, and that's where things get ugly.
Yeah, and we've seen Inter Miami do that. Maybe they get a quick goal from Messi or somebody else in the first 5 to 10 minutes. Can't just sit on it, because this team will make you pay. Will definitely make you pay. And but Javier Mascherano, speaking of that, it's obviously we talked a lot about it at the beginning of the season, first year. What would we expect? A guy who's barely older than it, or more or less the same age as the players on the field that he played with for so long. How do you think he's done, Michelle? Now that we look at it, I mean, obviously it's going to be graded by the end result, whether he wins an MLS Cup or not. But to this point, replacing Tata, who Tata, by the way, now the new coach in Atlanta.
Atlanta. Yes.
But we're
Atlanta. It's going to be exciting next year.
yeah. But what do you think about what Masha has been able to do to this point in the season?
Yeah, I know that there are a lot of critics, but listen, there were a lot of critics of Tata too. There were critics of Phil Neville. I mean, I'm a journalist. I'm not a fan. I see the game differently. I see the coaches day to day, what they do. I see their interactions with the players. I see their interactions with the media on a day to day basis. And there were people who thought Tata should have been fired. There were people who thought for sure that Phil Neville should have been fired, which he was. So there are people who say that, this team would be better if Masherano was not the coach, so on and so forth. I do think Tata obviously had more experience. Tata did have the team on top all season, which is something that this team was not. This team finished in third place instead of in first place. But at the end of the day, what's going to matter is, what happens now in these playoffs. Mascherano has taken them to the knockout round, which no other coach had done. So I think you have to give him credit for that. There was a lot of pressure on this team, in game 3. And they were able to not only come through, but to win very decisively and play arguably their best game of the entire season when it mattered most. And yes, you have Messi on the team and all of this. You still have to give credit to the coach for a team to play its best game of the season in the game that matters most when the entire season was on the line. Whatever he did, the tactics, the system, whatever he told them, the lineup that, he chose to put Silvetti in there. Now, he didn't have a choice. Suarez happened to be suspended. Maybe in a way that worked to their favor. I don't know. He was so upset about Suarez being suspended, Javier Mascherano. In a way, maybe that worked to their favor in that game anyway, to have Silvetti there. We'll see what happens now. I think overall, Javier Mascherano has done a good job. This team has played more games by far than any other team in MLS. It's not even close. They had to play in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They played in the Leagues Cup. They played in the Club World Cup. Now they're playing in the knockout round of the MLS Cup. This team has been playing, it seems like an eternity, because it has been an eternity. We're approaching 60 games here. This is, a lot of games to coach, and he's had to deal with big egos and big personalities. And I think overall, Javier Mascherano has done a good job. Obviously, the final grade, he won't get his full report card until we see if they advance from this game against Cincinnati. What do you think? How do you think he's done?
Well, they won't get the final report card unless they win the MLS Cup. I think it's graded on that. I think his grade is sort of hovering around the same with each game, but then it'll skyrocket if they finally win that championship that they've been trying to win the last couple of years since they put the band together. Yeah, I mean, look, our expectation. He's a first-year coach. He didn't have a lot of experience coaching at this level. No, he didn't have any experience coaching at this level, really. But I mean, like you said, it's hard. I mean, I think I called it the Phil Jackson factor. Remember, he always would get criticized like, oh, you have Michael Jordan, oh, you have Kobe, oh, you have Shaq. You're supposed to win. It's hard to manage all of that. It's hard to put all that in place when you basically, your best player, let's be real, is kind of like an acting CEO in certain aspects. It's like on this team, there's a lot of let's have Leo be happy going on. Let's be real. And there's a lot of external pressure on this team too, from Apple TV interests and how big he is for the league. And they're going here and they're going there and they're traveling all over the world. And they're dealing with it, not so much the volume of games, but the travel that they don't deal with when you're playing in Europe as much. All of that, you put all of that, plus injuries, plus you name it. You got to give the guy credit to at least to that point that he's been able to manage all of that. Here they are. If you look at the entire, I know it wasn't a very high bar historically for this franchise, but they have exceeded it this year. This is the farthest they've ever been in the playoffs. I know that's going to sound like very, very little consolation if they lose in Cincinnati on Sunday, but I'm just saying that has to be taken to a point. Now, of course, they don't win it all with this type of team. that also has to factor in too overall, because you didn't fall as short as last year, but you still did. At the end of the day, that's how most people will see it. At the end of the day, that they did fall short is the bottom line.
Yeah, I think overall he's done a good job for a first-year coach with absolutely no experience. He had only coached youth national team of Argentina. He had never coached a professional team of any kind. He had never coached in the United States in MLS, which has so many rules, roster rules. He had to learn how to deal with, the officiating here is different from what he's been used to. The roster rules are different. The travel, like you said, all of these opponents that he didn't know anything about Cincinnati, Nashville,
No.
Minnesota, Vancouver. It's not like he's been watching these teams day in and day out and he knows everything about all the players and all the tactics and all the styles and all the opposing coaches. He's learning on the fly. He's been learning on the fly all season. And I think there are people out there who have, because I hear from them that he's terrible, he's horrible, he's a horrible coach. I don't know. If you're him, this is the first time you've ever coached a professional team. It's the first time you've ever coached in Major League Soccer. You're learning on the fly. Every single week you're facing, at the beginning anyway, facing a team you know nothing about and you've never faced before. I think they've done pretty well. And they have gotten to this point, to the Cincinnati game. Now, like you said, if they were to win the cup, he gets an A+ on his report card,
He gets a parade. He gets a parade
run.
down Las Olas or wherever they decide to do a parade in Fort Lauderdale or here in Miami, maybe right across the stadium, right? But
yes,
it's a marathon of a travel schedule and game schedule. I mean, they were going at least, I don't know the specific, but they had to be going at least 2 months where it was
every 3 days.
2 games a week, every 3 days. And then like we've talked about, these guys are used to this being if this were in the Premier League or wherever, Miami would have fallen 1 point short of the title. Season's over. That's it. Okay, they get advanced. They get to go to UEFA Champions League. Great, whatever. No, you have all of that. And now you're thrown into almost like a World Cup format where you're playing do or die this game and this game, a whole new thing. So it's like two
and nothing
things
you
in
did
one.
in the past matters, right? And nothing in the past,
They're
you did in the past matters. It's a whole new tournament now. It's like, forget about what season? Who cares about the regular season? This is all that matters now, is the playoffs.
Being an MLS player is like the longest marathon of a season. I got to say, maybe in the whole world, maybe, because you're going from February till December, barely with a break. And of course, this is a great segue. I know we have a Masherano clip to talk about, but it's a good segue to what we're going to say after that about the calendar shifting. But
the new calendar.
Yeah, but let's hear from Javier Masherano
about what it's been like for him to make decisions with this team.
El reto sigue siendo el mismo, estar a la altura de los grandísimos jugadores que tiene el plantel. Al final, poder estar a la altura. A veces lo estamos, a veces no. Pero sobre todo poder, como entrenador, ser sincero, honesto, tratar de trabajar de la mejor manera, sabiendo que en muchas ocasiones me voy a equivocar y aprender también de esos errores. Claramente no es fácil entrenar jugadores con tanto conocimiento del juego. Por eso creo que uno tiene que escucharlos mucho a ellos y saber por dónde ir. Más allá de que claramente tengo la responsabilidad de tomar las decisiones, pero no creerme el dueño de la verdad, ni mucho menos. Todo lo contrario. Creo que la verdad está en escucharlos, en comprenderlos, en acompañarlos y a partir de toda esa información tratar de ir tomando decisiones donde nos pueda favorecer a todos como equipo.
He was asked about what is it like to be the coach of all these players when you're coaching players who are legends. What is that like? And especially for him, honestly, you mentioned his age. I mean, he's 40 years old. He's basically 1 or 2 years older than several of the big stars on this team. So he is their contemporary. He played with them on the field not that long ago. Right. So he was asked what that's like. And he said, at the end of the day, the goal is just for the team to be the best it can be. And for him as the coach is that he said, I'm going to make mistakes. I know that I'm going to make mistakes. I have to learn from every mistake. And he said, and it is difficult to coach players with such deep knowledge of the game. It is difficult to coach players who know so much, who have such deep knowledge. And that's why I have to listen to them. I have to listen to them a lot. But at the same time, I'm responsible for making decisions. And, I have to try to do my best to make the decisions based on what I'm hearing from them. But I know that I am not, he said, the owner of the truth. I know that, I know that they know what they're doing, and I have to listen to them and support them and hope that I can guide the team to make, to support them and guide them to be the best team that they can be. And this is where, when I've been hearing a lot from some fans in the last few days saying, you guys need to ask Javier Masherano this week, why would you start Luis Suarez? Why would you start Luis Suarez? That is the question that's going to come up. And look, what he's saying here is he listens to the players, meaning he listens to Messi, he listens to Suarez, he listens to Busquets, he listens to Alba. These are guys who have won trophies at the highest level, and he's not going to just boss them around and do whatever. He's going to listen to them. He's a player's coach. I think he has to be in that situation. When you've got stars like that. It's like coaching LeBron. It's like coaching LeBron James or like coaching Michael Jordan. You have to listen to what the players say, and they do have more influence than, players on other MLS teams where the coach decides the lineup without much pressure or influence from the players on the field. In this case, if you are the coach of this team, whether you're Tata or whether you're, Javier Mascherano or whoever may come later, Messi is going to have an impact on the lineup, period. And if Messi wants Suarez to start, Suarez is going to start. That's just how it is. If Messi tells him, this is why Luis has to start and explains it to him, I don't think Javier Mascherano is going to say, well, no, sorry, Leo, I don't agree with that. I just don't think that conversation happens.
He's had to walk a fine line, and again, this is another thing that people probably assume or criticize for him too. He's had to walk a fine line between what you just said about listening to them, trusting their experience, and all that, but drawing the line as I'm your coach and I'm going to do what's best for the team. I'm not your buddy. I'm not your teammate anymore. You know what I mean? Like, he's had to walk that fine line, and that's something
very fine line. These are guys who played together at Barcelona, the 5 of them. He was part of 5 who played together, and now 4 of them are still on the field, and he's on the sideline coaching them. It's a difficult position that he's in. We have no idea the internal conversations that are going on between him, or how much can he persuade Lionel Messi. If Leo has an idea that he disagrees with, what are those conversations like? And does Leo win every time? Or is it 50-50? Is it 75-25? I don't know.
Yeah.
We will never know. None of us will ever get to ask that question. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors. But he's got a difficult job. It's not so easy just to say, I could go coach this team with those players and they could win the MLS title. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. Tata lost in the first round, and Tata's an excellent coach with a lot of experience coaching professional, coaching the Argentine national team, coaching at Barcelona, for goodness sakes. And he lost in the first round of the MLS playoffs with Messi and Busquets and Alba on the field. And so it's not as easy as it may look. It's not as easy as it may look.
And that's another scheduling wrinkle, that 2 out of 3 format. That's not something you typically see. The only deviation from just a straight up game is maybe the aggregate format where you play 2 and do the whole thing. But a 2 out of 3, that's baseball, that's hockey, that's the NBA maybe, or in some format. Not soccer. You're not used to playing the same team.
You never play someone more than twice.
And then
twice. You play aggregate twice. That's it.
Look what ended up happening as part of the whole scheduling quirk, 4 in a row, because your regular season finale also happened to be with the team. And then going into that game, there were implications on that game too to solidify your playoff spot. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just a nonstop thing that they don't necessarily have to deal with in the same way. It's a different kind of pressure, and they've had to acclimate to that. But on that note, it sounds like MLS is trying to get to the form that everyone around the world is used to. And starting in 2027, MLS will now have the format that's more familiar to soccer fans around the world, a late summer start, wrap it up around May, more or less, depending on how it goes. I mean, obviously, they're going to have to figure out accommodating their playoff system into that. It's not going to be just like, when the Premier League ends in May and that's it. Like we were saying, it's done. No.
But they are talking about
playoffs.
changing the they're talking about changing the playoff system.
Right.
Also, that part has not been announced yet. They're still talking about it. They are going to adjust. The playoff system is going to be adjusted. The playoff system is going to be adjusted. There may be a single table. There may be two tables. It's going to be different. They're talking now about what is the best format. So not only is the schedule going to change, the thing that's been announced so far, which is really very big decision, is MLS is now aligning with the rest of the world. Finally, they're going to be playing, not exactly, they're going to start in July. The season will start in July. It'll end in late May. They are going to take an extended winter break. So from mid-December to early February, there will be a break. There will be no games in January at all. No games in January, and limited games especially in the northern climates, because that was the big question. What's going to happen with Minnesota, with teams that play cold weather? Yeah, even in New York and Philadelphia, it's cold in December, January. So
you got to deal with the freeze factor. Yeah,
you have to deal with that. So the thing is, the new schedule that they're going to have, 91% of the games will be played in the same time frames that they're played now. 91% will be played during the months that they're played now. 9% of the games are changing. But that percentage of the games is really critical, because the playoffs right now are falling during the NFL season, during the college football season, start of college basketball season. They are being the MLS playoffs, which should be the time that they're getting the most attention. They're getting the least amount of attention right now because there's so much competition on the U.S. sports calendar. The way it's going to be now, starting in 2027, the playoffs are going to be in April and May. Right. April and May, which is the nicest weather all over the country. April and May. Okay, you're not going to have the weather you have right now in December and November here.
So you're only up against baseball,
you're up against baseball.
You're up against the NBA and NHL playoffs too, though. At that point,
yeah, but not the end of those. The end of those are really in June.
Yeah,
the end of those seasons is really in June. Yeah. This is right. The early rounds. This is going to end in May. So they feel that it's just better, and also for the transfer windows and for the FIFA calendar. Everything on the soccer global calendar is based on the global soccer calendar, which is the FIFA breaks and the transfer windows. They will be able now to have transfer windows, the way they do in the rest of the world, in the summer and in January, when the games are not going on. This is when the big transfers happen. It's not going to be haphazard in the middle of the MLS season, which made it more difficult for them to compete for some of the top players. So this move is really, really good. It's an excellent decision. It's long overdue. And they are talking also, like I said, about changing the playoff format, which I think is good too. We have to wait and see what happens with that. But there's going to be big overhauls starting in 2027.
The July start instead of the August start is to squeeze in the playoffs, since obviously you have to account for that part too, plus that big break in the winter side too. Interesting. So basically, 2026 they crown the MLS Cup champion in December, and then the league will have a long break until that summer. Or how's it going to work? How's that?
No, they're going to have. I should mention this, right? They're going to have something called the sprint season in 2027. At the beginning of the year, they are going to have a shortened 14-game season, like a little mini season between February and May, They're going to have a very short 14-game season that is going to, include CONCACAF Champions Cup and Leagues Cup. It's going to have some cups and some tournaments so that there won't be a long break to the start of the 2027 MLS season in
That's what I
July.
was wondering. Yep.
There will be what they're calling it a sprint season in 2027. There will be the sprint season, 14 games, and then there will be the full season that will start in July.
Yeah, I think people probably were curious, how are they gonna switch that from that one season going into the other one before they take it off and go to the same format from that point on. But
so they're going to use it to do the tournaments. Yeah, I think they're going to do the Leagues Cup in there, a CONCACAF Champions Cup. They're going to have these tournaments and have 14 games to have a very shortened season that will, determine spots for those tournaments and so on. And then they'll go on to the full 2027 new format season.
New format. Well, and we know 2026, the final season that MLS will play in the current format, is a huge year in the sports world, especially down here in South Florida, and of course in the soccer world, because it's World Cup time again next year. And you have some news to report. President Donald Trump announced that expedited visas will be issued for ticket holders. 32 teams have already qualified. It's going to be 42 by the time you're probably hearing this podcast or watching it. The final draw will be on December 5th. Funny, the day before the MLS Cup championship.
Another dumb thing. That's another thing. That's another thing. I'll just throw this in there. The MLS Cup, having the MLS Cup on the day after the World Cup draw, it's going to get lost. It's going to get lost because everyone is going to be talking about the World Cup draw the next day. Who's playing who? Who's playing where? Which is the group of death? Everyone is going to be talking about the World Cup draw. And it's like, oh, hey, by the way, here from the United States, tuning in from the United States, we have the biggest game of our league.
Messi's here playing for a championship, guys. Maybe. I'm just saying, if
Messi plays, it will get some attention. If Messi does not play in that championship game,
that might be the only way.
The MLS Cup will be lost, unfortunately. It is really unfortunate. That's why having the MLS play on the same calendar as everyone else in the world is going to only benefit this league and the growth of the sport in this country.
They can't get to 2027 fast enough for MLS, I think.
Exactly.
At this point. I mean, but tell us about the visas initiative, Michelle, before we wrap this up.
Yes, there's a visa initiative. President Trump from the Oval Office was there with Gianni Infantino. They've become good buddies. They were there with the FIFA task force. There's a White House FIFA task force that is working on the World Cup on, security issues and everything, transportation, everything that has to happen. And so there is now for people who are ticket holders, if you buy a legitimate ticket from the FIFA portal, which is the only place you can buy legitimate tickets at this point. If you buy a ticket, you live in a foreign country and you're coming to the United States, you can apply for an expedited priority visa application. It doesn't mean your ticket does not get you into the country. I want to stress for all of you out there, because we do have people tuning into the show from 220 countries, by the way, and we thank every one of you. If you're coming here for the World Cup, your ticket is not a visa to the United States. You still have to apply for a tourist visa or whatever your country requires to come into the United States. But if you have a ticket, you will be able to apply through FIFA to an expedited visa system where you will basically jump the line and be in front of, move to the front of the queue ahead of other travelers who are coming here for other reasons. If you have a World Cup ticket, you will be moved up the line for a visa application. You still have to go through the same vetting as anyone else that's coming into this country, but your application will be moved up. It's a priority. It's called FIFA Pass. It's a priority system where you will move up in the line to your visa application. So you can find all the information with the links. I made it very simple at MiamiHerald.com. Look up my story on World Cup visas in today's Miami Herald, and you will find all of the links. You just click on the link, and it's very simple. 1, 2, 3, what you need to do if you are a World Cup ticket holder.
There you go. I'm ready to go for the World Cup, ready to go for this MLS schedule shift. Oh, wait, got to wait a year or two for both of them pretty much. what people are really going to be ready for is this weekend and the second round of these playoffs. Not just the Inter Miami Cincinnati game, but looking at some good matchups to look at around the league. This in this conference semifinal round, Vancouver and LAFC Saturday night 9:30 gets it all kicked off, and then the rest of them actually in Cincinnati Inter Miami at 5 p.m. on Sunday, followed by Philly and New York City FC at 7:45. That'll determine
Right, and the
East.
winner of that game, the winners play each other. Yeah,
The winners play each other. So if Philly, let's say Miami did advance and Philly advances, the game is in Philly. If New York City pulls it off in Philadelphia and Miami pulls it off in Cincinnati, the game will be at Chase Stadium in the conference finals. And then the West, like we said, Vancouver, LAFC. Monday night at 10 is the final game. San Diego taking on Minnesota, so that'll decide the West. And then Friday, November 28th will be, as of now, it looks like that'll be the date for the conference finals. And then, like we said before, the MLS Cup lost in the shuffle around the World Cup draw time. So maybe not lost in the shuffle if Messi and the Rockstars get there. Not as
if
much.
Messi and the
anyway,
Rockstars
long
get there,
road
it
to
would
go.
be here. It would be here at Chase Stadium.
It would be
if
here.
Messi and the Rockstars
It would be here
get there.
because they,
Yes.
as we've said, Miami has home field advantage no matter what against the Western Conference champion. But of course, can't look past this Sunday in any shape or form. This is a massive obstacle for them to overcome. Michelle and I will be back next week to tell you all about it if they did, or if we have to say goodbye for now, and that might be our season finale episode. We'll see what happens. We'll see what Messi and company can do. But until then, we thank you for watching Inside Inter Miami. For Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. We'll see you next week.